The next type of transformation that we're going to be discussing is a reflection. We'll talk about both reflections over the x-axis and the y-axis. So when we reflect over the x-axis, we are taking positive values of y and shifting them across the x-axis, reflecting, to make them negative values. This is considered a vertical transformation. We're starting at the top and flipping something over. So you can see here that if we have g of x is equal to negative on the outside, absolute value of x, we physically take that graph and we reflect it over the axis. Reflection over the y-axis, on the other hand, occurs inside a grouping symbol. So in this case, we have absolute value bars. All of these examples on this quick reference sheet are for absolute value, but it could just as easily be parentheses. So in this case, the graph will flip over the y-axis. So here's what happens when you do that. If you take a point that's right here, let's say at 5, 5, and you reflect it over the y-axis, you end up at negative 5, 5. Notice that in this case, we have still landed on the graph. We've completely moved it to the other side, but we are still on the graph. So visually, you don't see a change in the graph whenever you do a reflection over the y-axis, specifically for absolute value. Let's go ahead and take a look at an example for both of these. So first we're going to look at a reflection in the x-axis, and we are starting with our absolute value function. Again, remember that for absolute value or anything that has grouping symbols, that negative is going to occur on the outside. So our g of x, our transform function, is going to be negative f of x. Now, what is f of x? Well, f of x is just absolute value of x. So we can write our transformed function in terms of f of x here. Plugging in for f of x, we get negative absolute value of x. For reflections in the y-axis, again starting with our absolute value function, we're going to substitute the negative x right there inside the absolute value bars. Remember that horizontal transformations occur inside with x. So to write the general rule, g of x is equal to f of negative x, inside with x, and it only affects the x value. Substituting in absolute value of x, we get that g of x is equal to the absolute value of negative x.